Barry in Melbourne, who's going to explain syntax and what it's useful for.
Yeah, good evening, Dominic. Syntax, why we use it, and that's probably a question you're going to ask me, is because when you receive documents from the so-called government, which we've got to remember now, these are not governments anymore, they're private corporations entwined and run and controlled by larger ones. And we've just seen a good example of that over the last, since they brought in this weaponized the common cold, if you like, or influenza, which we've got to be very serious. It does affect people's lungs, and if they have a weakness in those lungs, they're going to get very ill. But this is what we're not talking about this. But they brought out an act, the Stay-at-Home Act, and I don't know what it's called in certain places, but it could be seen on reasonable grounds if you look at the grammar of this document, which I went through a little bit of grammarizing, or whatever the hell you call it. It was written by a 5-year-old child when it comes to making sense. Now, when you look at, we have a list of adverbs which we use every day. I got a list of them there, and those adverbs, they just basically have his, her, like. It's the words we use every day, but these change the word afterwards. And then a pronoun is a no-no. It's like when somebody sends you something from a courthouse citation, you are requested to attend. And when it starts off with you, it's a pronoun. And a pronoun, are they actually talking to John's Fong Yong Shu in China? Are they talking to someone's sheep, a female sheep, you? So it's really, it has no meaning really. And requested, or REQ, when it starts off with certain words, it means no contract.
Interesting stuff. Yeah. Well, hopefully all the viewers enjoy the video. It's a bit in depth, but it does explain all the different adverbs and meanings of words and colour of law, and that'll follow on in a second. So see if you can get your head around it. It's very difficult, but have a look at it because it's very useful in court and other such legal cases, parking fines, etc., etc.
Yeah. Well, like it says, the chief health officer, we wrote down in numbers because you can't write pronoun, adverb, adjunct, adjective, and all these tops. So you put numbers. So number 3 is an adjective. Now, if you look at the term adjective, it colors something. It's an illusion. So the word after that becomes an illusion. So these documents are written, and if you look at the whole thing, it's totally, it's fiction. It's gobbledygook. It has no lawful meaning. And when you receive documents from the courts, and a summons and anything like that, or even police paperwork, it's all in boxes. And anything that's in the box doesn't connect with the next box. So there's no continuance of conversation even. So, and when you find something is in brackets, it's not actually, it's got nothing to do with the rest of the document. The whole thing is an illusion and fiction.
That sounds very similar to a court. They seem to be in boxes in a courthouse. Is that the same kind of thing?
Yeah, that's another good one. Well, this is why the term level playing field. It's not a level playing field. And I think that's really what they meant when they looked inside courts in the old days, they were pretty honorable. I mean, the old solicitors and the old barristers and people, and lawmen of any description had a little bit of honor, so they were pretty good. But now it seems to become privatized, and it's now just, I call it the new state bank. And if you're going to go into a court, you have the judge sits up on a higher level, and he's in a box. Now, as again, anything in a box doesn't communicate outside that box, so if he's blind, he cannot hear, he cannot see. Then we have the witness box. Now, the witness box is on a little lower level, and they're in a box, so it cannot be seen, cannot be heard if you look at it in communication. And then we have the jury, and they're in a box. So they cannot hear the judge, they cannot see, and it just goes on.
Sounds very much like a ship, like the captain of a ship, that kind of thing.
That's exactly what it is. He's up there on the steering the ship. He's in dream world. So as the only people who are on the same level is the defendant or the victim and the prosecution. So they're on the same level. So if you're going to have an argument in court, you waste your time communicating with the judge because he cannot hear, he cannot see. So you obviously, by failing to answer a question, that's contract as well. So you can say no comment or all due respects, but you take your argument up with the prosecution and try and get full disclosure of them. In most cases, they can't. So you're the principal there, and you ask for full disclosure, and when you they don't even know who the hell you are because that's the first question any magistrate will ask is your name, John Michael Smith. And this is where the argument starts, and this is where you've got to learn how to handle yourself.
That's interesting. Interesting. So that's, I think we've covered most of the ins and outs of syntax there. Well, not all of it. It's a very complicated thing. We'll run the VT as they say, and have a look. That's all I can say. Have a look and get your head around it and learn a bit more.
Oh, you're going to run a bit of that video that on your YouTube over there in the UK in Worcestershire in the winters and the flooding. I've seen some of your videos on the flooding. Dominic, you had a bit of fun with that, I see.
Well, as part of my daily exercise, I thought I'd have a walk down, have a look. I think I got there just at the right time to do the little video. Cause I always take my camera. You never know what's going to happen. And yeah, had some good shots. Met some interesting people on the way down. Nice little day out, really. So that's all good. So, Dr. Barry, what's the difference between being a person and a living human being?
Good question. And one time you could Google it, but I don't think Google tell you anymore. I'm not too sure. I've got no argument with Google. But if you look it up, you'll find ask what a person is in law, and it will tell you that it is a deceased estate at law. You are actually you're not living, and that it's a persona. The word persona is mask, so you're wearing a mask. If you look in the mirror, you can see the image is a person because it's not living. You couldn't get it. You held up a mirror to the image in the mirror and asked it to blow some air or breath on it and fog up the mirror. It couldn't. So you're the only one. You're the living man. You can actually fog that mirror up. So that's a good distinction between the living and the dead. It's an image. Now, if you accept the fact that you're a person, well, then you've got to accept the consequences of being a person. And then you've got to be careful when you say, I am not a person, I'm a living man. You're I think people in a court case or when it becomes to pension time, you say, oh, listen, I'm not a person, I'm a living man. You've got to distinguish, you've got to say in now time, I am in the courthouse, at now time, Your Honor, with all due respect, I am a living man, I am not a person, and I do not contract with all due respect. So you've got to distinguish between the living and the dead. Now, if any magistrate wants to communicate with you as a living man, he can't. He only can communicate with the dead because your deceased estate is your name in in capital letters, and that's why they've got to get, are you John Smith? And you say, yes, I am John Smith or Michael Doe, then you actually accept the contract.
So this obviously must all go back to, I presume, the signing of the birth certificate from when you were born, I guess, with your, would it be your surname? Is that the name of the dead? Am I right with that?
Yeah, that's right. Well, it goes back to when the papal bull brought out, and a papal bull was law way back because they made a lot of laws, and they sent that to the UK in September. And I think the fire was the 5th. I always get mixed up whether it's the 25th or the 5th of September. The 5th of September in London, when they had the Great Fire, the papal bull was there to be discussed, and they passed the Act of 1666. Hence the term, the mark of the beast 666. Now, the beast obviously must have been the Pope because he created that quest of a P, where all men and women are dead and all property belonged to the Vatican. And it still stands today if you ask any solicitor, especially a young one just coming out of college, and ask them if possession is 9/10 of the law, who owns the other bit? Well, the title. And the title is held by the Vatican in a lot of cases. So that's basically never admit the fact that you're a person, especially if it's not in your interest.
Is there any way that someone can, I think that you say it's your fiction. Is there a way that you can leave your fiction and actually own your fiction?
Well, the way to do that is with an ID, and I know that you've got one down there in Worcestershire and
Hmm.
the other side of the world, wherever it is up the top, that you have an ID. And if you're ever asked for ID, of course you're going to produce your driving license. It's probably the most that most people have, or your something with your address on it at home, electricity bill or something to prove who you are. You and I have identifications that have our surnames in capitals in brackets, so they're not part of the ID, but it does state that we are diplomats for that sending state. So it's clearly saying that we're a living man, we're not a person, and we don't have to contract with any. It goes back to the law. There is only one law, and that's God's law, and that comes from the Ten Commandments. Now, it's got nothing to do with religion; it's fact. Now, if you don't believe the Ten Commandments, it still doesn't matter because it goes back to the days when there were villages in the UK and they had disputes and someone's building encroached on your building. Then they went to the head men or head well men that were in those days, and they got round and had a case like a court case, and they made a decision what to do about that. And there was no records kept. But in 1066, after the Battle of Hastings, when William the Conqueror took over, they started keeping records, and that becomes the start of the common law. So it goes back that far. And of course, the Magna Carta and all these. Well, there was a charter which wasn't a Magna Carta because there were several charters later, and later on they made I think it was King John actually made a bigger charter and becomes Magna, as in big, so the Magna Carta, and then later on that became controlled by the Parliament. So the kings couldn't make any more charters. So it was controlled, and it still stands today. And the Americans, they built their law on it. And in fact, the Bar Association in America actually came to Rudy Mayer in London and put a shrine up there. So it is enshrined and it is part of our law. All the other laws that are fictional laws or statute laws are all man-made, and they're all made for persons and not for the living man. And even a traffic offence, driving recklessly on a highway, reckless endangerment, they could be charged with common law, but they'd have to go to court. I mean, they wouldn't make any money out of it, so it's easy to give them a fine. So that's why we're tied up in this fictional world, and of course we've allowed it to happen.
Going back to America, just what I've been seeing on the news recently, I noticed that the Senate is all fenced off around. I mean, what's the significance with that?
Yes, well, now you've got to read what we're saying now is our personal opinion, and that doesn't really account for a lot. But anyhow, it could be seen on reasonable grounds that Washington is an independent country like the Vatican, and District Corporation of London District Corporation of London and the Vatican, and so that. There's three independent countries, and the Vatican is one of them, and the District Corporation of London, where all the banks inside the walls. So in 1066, in 1066, London walls were never breached. So that's always been an independent country there. The Queen has to get permission to enter in there.
That's why we've got two mayors, isn't it?
That's right. You've got the Lord Mayor of London, and then you've got the Mayor of London outside. Never the twain shall ever meet. And of course, Washington was created I think they set it up in 1913 when most of the Congress has gone away. A couple of the crooked ones stayed back and organized that. So it's an independent country. So now it's walled off, apparently, and they got all these troops in there. So it could be seen that the new president may not be, he may be the president of the Corporation of America. And outside of that, then there is the Republic of America, right? So, and if another president was to come in and say in March, he'd be the ninth president of the Republic of the United States. So it's a look. There's something going on, and there's lots of hearsay and stuff. But we're just going to have to wait till March, the 4th of March. Now, that's just my opinion, and Top's opinion, of a few others. But realistically, I can't.
Yeah, we're just going to wait for the truth to come out. Well, I hope you found that interesting, and I'd like to say thank you very much to Dr. Barry in Melbourne, which is coming through nice and clear considering there's the other side of the world technology for you. So enjoy, and we'll see you shortly. So bye, everyone. Thanks for viewing.
Thanks, Dominic. Have fun over there in the cold. We'll catch up with you
Oh,
again. Bye for now.
bye. Enjoy the sunshine.
Dr. Barry, Lundove News, Melbourne, Australia. This video is about the syntax grammar. Remember, I promised you guys a little bit more about it. It's the Chief Health Officer's waffle about how to stay-at-home directions, and when you have a quick look at it, you'll see that it was written by a 5-year-old child in relation to grammar, pronouns. It's just gobbledygook. I'll keep the waffle down, I promise, right? Now, the information, a lot of people say you didn't give us information on IDs and where we could make a donation to the International Common Law Court Foundation, and that's just to help us to get printing done and all the things that we need to keep the system going. We have very deep pockets and they're empty, but that's another story. The information is at the back of this video, the whole thing. Waffle, I do. Okay, if you get bored like I do with other videos, just go wound forward to the end and you'll get the information, the address to get an ID card done, information if you want to make a donation, and the International Common Law Court address. Everything's at the back, so if you're sick of me waffling, just fast forward. Identification cards, information at the back. Just the whole thing. I'm an amateur, I'm not an expert. My syntax grammar is basic, but it gets the message across. Now, there is a form at the back there as well, where I put forward so you can have a look at it, freeze frame, and copy what's on there. These are the details you send back, knowledge of claim, back to the courts, and you ask them to place your case in your jurisdiction. On the back of it, you draw a line and you put a stamp, and that really gives it credibility, and they have to accept it in the courts. Just quickly, a lot of people ask for IDs. I need your photograph, head and shoulders, date of birth, physical address. I can send it to a post office box, no problem. And that's all it takes, right? I can't answer emails, guys, because if I answer 2 or 3 emails, it ends up in 5 emails, which more questions asked. And look, I'm just a one-man band. I'm not getting paid for this. So I'm just... Anyway, let's have a look at the paperwork, and that...
This document was sent out to somebody who was accused. If you look under the Crimes Act, that's the whole Crimes Act itself, right? And they do name what's in it. Anyway, to the accused. Now, the accused is I'll rub her name out. It was a lady who got a summons for not wearing a mask. So in here is a box. So the accused is in here, and we've got NFPA, Victoria, all the rubbish goes in here. That's one box. Now there's no continuance in this document over to here. So we have the dates, stuff, male, female, date of birth, state, all that rubbish, completely in a box. Again, in a box, boxes. So what we can do with that there is no continuance, no continuance. And then what is the charge? That's a good question, because that's in a box too. Here's the emergency worker being reckless with... I mean, right? That's got nothing to do with the charge either, so it's rubbish. Under what law? That's a very good question, because it's fictional law for a start. It's not common law. And there was a police woman involved in the charge, and she was acting outside jurisdiction because our law is, our oath of office, which doesn't apply anymore because they're a private corporation, would have been under the common law, and this is an act. So really, they have no enforcement rights under that either. So this here has got nothing to do with this bit, and all the regulations, all in acts. Look, yes, yes, yes. It looks good. Signature down the bottom. Rubbish. Type of offence. The whole thing is gobbledygook. The preamble, they call it, of the Chief Health Officer's directions, which we discovered or realized a long time ago that it may have been written by a 5-year-old child. So look at the preambles 1, 2, and 3, and 4, so on. Right. Let's start at the "the." Now the "the," as we all know, is an adverb. Oh. So we'll give it a 1. And then we move on to purpose. Well, the purpose is a word that can, the purpose of this, the purpose, it's really an adjective, right? So it's the color of, it's the color of it. So it's changing the concept of what's going to come, what's coming next. So far in this document, so far, the first 2 words, we've gone from an adverb to an adjective, which is the color of, and of course the next word is of, and in this case it's a pronoun. Of what? So we give it a 4, because remember we can't keep writing adjective, pronoun, verb, and so on and so forth, because if so we'd be going on forever. And these directions, now this is an adverb, it changes the next word, so we give it a 1. Now if you remember right, dir, anything starts with dir, is a no contract. It's very hard to write with a mouse. No contract. So that's, here we go, it's already gobbledygook. Now is to is the next word. We should look for the adverbs first. This would be the simple thing to look off for the adverbs, and then you look for the pronouns. But let's just go here. Is an adverb, and to is an adverb. To, of course, is in the future tense. So the future tense is something is going to happen. And of course, address, we have add. It starts off with a vowel, which means a no contract. So that word is just gobbledygook, as most of them are. Right. Address, the serious. This is, oh my God, this is very serious, right? So the changes is an adverb. It's going to change what the next word. So we'll give it a 1. So it's going to change this serious thing here. Well, how serious is it? You know, a serious what? It's the color of. It's actually, it's just saying it's serious. It's coloring the next word. And public what? Public toilets, public health. They're saying here, but both of them are adjectives, right? They're both pronoun or adjectives, right? Color off 3. It just means nothing. Risk, what? Risk what? Again, an adjective. Color off. So we have the serious coloring of coloring, right? And then we have the very serious word down here, poised. I mean, yeah, it's a pronoun. Absolute diddly squat. To, well, that's an adverb. It's going to change to what? Now, what do we go on to look at Victoria? Well, Victoria is a verb. So that's one verb in the whole thing. It's really serious stuff. That's good, the verb, right? A by is an adverb. So the by is going to change the next thing. Novel. Well, that's diddly squat, so that's 3. That's an adjective, right? And this one here is a pronoun. So the whole thing, as you can see up there, there's only one verb in the whole thing. It's gobbledygook. It has no legal, I hate the term legal, it's fiction as we know, but it has no legal standing. This is written by the legal profession to convince the people who do not understand what they're reading into obeying. And look at all the people who obey this, and it's nothing more than gobbledygook. Now we go back down to these directions. Now we all know that these is a verb. It's going to change the next one. Well, what do we know about the word direction? dir means no contract. So that's a no contract. It has no meaning. It's got no binding. It's nothing. And then we move on to the next one. Require again. Or req is a no contract word. So it's a no contract. No contract. Now everyone. Everyone, and that just includes the animals. It's pronoun. It's absolute gobbledygook again. Who is an adverb. Who? Doctor Who? Well, doesn't sound right. Who? Ordinary, right? Ordinary resides. Ordinary starts with a vowel again. It's a no contract. Resides, again, RES, remember that? No, contract, really hard to write with this. Oh, here we go. How serious are we getting now? In the restricted, in adverb, there. Restricted, again, the color of law. It's just coloring, it's an adjective. So it's just color of law. Area, restricted area. Oh my gosh, that's very serious stuff. So this guy here is a for, pronoun. Rubbish. They love it. They carry on. And then we carry on to. Again, to is an adverb, but it's the future. To proceed to something. So it's an adverb. So that's a one. We're running out of room up here, so we have to go there. So, right? And limit. Well, limit is an adverb. Oh, sorry, is a verb. So that means something. To move. Verbs means to have standing, right? So we'll give that a 2, right? Okay. Their instructions. Again, we have instructions and no contract. Starts with a vowel. With others, by. With others. With is an adverb. Others. Now, others can go on. We can talk about that for a little while. Others what? It starts with a vowel, so it's a no contract. No contract. It's just goes on. And there's not even much point. Look, let's go down a bit further down here because we'll go to B. Let's go to B. There's not much room up the top there. Right. So, placing restrictions on gatherings. Placing. Think about placing. It could be anything. We could be placing tiles on a wall. So it's going to color. It's going to color the next word if the next word wasn't restrictions. But we know that now that RES, we're getting used to this now, is a no contract word. It means nothing. Oh God, I can't probably write. I haven't been drinking. It's just that it's not easy. Restrictions on gatherings. Now on is an adverb. And the next word change up. Gatherings. Gatherings is what? Are we gathering, chickens, coops, eggs? It's a color. It's coloring the next word. It's just basically an adjective, right? Again. Including. Well, now, including would be all right, but it starts with a vowel. So it's a no contract word. Including prohibited. Well, prohibited. PRO, no contract. Private. PRIV, no contract. No contract. And it's actually private. Private what? Private in the army. So we'll give it. It's the color of law anyway. So it's rubbish. As I said before, if it wasn't so serious, we'd have to laugh all the way to the bank if we were getting paid for this. Now, gatherings, again, gatherings of what? Again, what we're gathering. It's a pronoun. Right? Then we come along here. This is interesting. If you look here, we got brackets. Woo! Now, what does that mean? Anything inside that brackets has got nothing to do with this document. So this doesn't exist. And if we did look ahead, no visitors, there's not even much point. There's not even much point correcting the grammar in there because it doesn't belong to the box at all. They're just having a laugh at you. And then we go down here to 3. Okay, let's look at 3. These directions, we know that's an adverb. Let's get used to doing this. 1, directions is the what? Are we talking about Google directions or what? It's an adjective. It's coloring. It's coloring the next word. Now, must is an adverb. Must be, no, it's just basically proper grammar. Be read. Adverb. And then we've got, again, we have a pronoun. Another 3. We're in a room. 3. Together. Together. It's again the color of it's coloring the word. Like I always call it the color of law. It's changing the whole thing after that. And with is an adverb. And again, another adverb. We've got two adverbs in a row, which is unusual to a certain degree. Directions. Again, we've got, no, that's a no contract. Okay, no contract. Currently. Well, that's a color, that's a complete no-no. It's a pronoun. Not worth the paper is written on. It's just absolute gobbledygook. In is an adverb, and the next word is very important in force. So what's force? Force could be anything. It's a pronoun. It's a waste of time. So the whole thing goes on and on and on. Look, we could spend all day talking, but it gets rather boring. But you can see by that document itself, even if there was mistakes, and there may be, because I'm not an expert, I'm just someone trying to help and learn at the same time. The document itself is not worth the paper it's written on. It has no meaning. And if you were to look at that from an educated point of view, if you were a really good grammar teacher or something, you would say that was written by a 5-year-old. Anyway, I hope it helps a little bit. Let's look at one more. This is the best I can do. I have seen it work to a certain degree, but you have to remember you're dealing with a very slippery bunch of people which no longer abide by the law, but make up the rules as they go along. This was definitely puts the cat among the pigeons, and that's being polite. So the venue, that's where the court is. The court is the venue, and the court's the paperwork, in fact. So we put down the red ensign, which is the true Australian flag, because it was changed without a referendum. Another story. And obviously you wouldn't put Daniel Andrews' identification in there. You would replace it with your own ID. Certificate of identity, diplomat, that's, don't worry about that spelling there, it's all just made up. Rat face Dan, the name goes there, and the surname is in brackets, which is not part of that document. That document is a true identification, because normally if you're asked for identification, you produce a driving license or a passport or a Medicard, which is all their products. Oh, they own them all. They own you as well, so what you're now saying, I've got an identification, you don't own me. I'm an independent living man or a living woman. So up the top here we put down to the register, for the registrar, right? So you find the registrar's name, Mary Jones, wherever the case may be, and the clerk of the court venue with the duty of filing the document in the above lawful venue is there. Now they can't do this because their venue is fiction. So that really upsets them a little bit. And then you put in, say, John Doe or John Michael Doe. So John, put the two little dots, Michael hyphen or space, or whatever you want to call it, Michael, with the knowledge of claim. Minors make claims. So claim is a stake in the ground, you're making a claim. With lawful identification, I put accept in there because ACC is not a proper word really, because it's a no contract word. So we put in brackets. Okay, so what? It's getting the message across. The invitation, if we want to look at that, we could correct that as well. We have to get the message across somehow. Beneficiary, again, it's in grammar, it's not the best, but it's the best I can do. For the deceased estate. You are if your surname is the deceased estate, so you put the deceased estate name in here with the claim of knowledge of wrongdoing and fiction. Everything else is self-explanatory. Human rights, fictional claims, knowledge, fraud, language, with the now. With the Postal Service, with the duty of transportation of mail in compliance with the Bill of Landing. Now, up the top there, you should put a stamp. Okay, can I just actually, it's too much trouble. But anyway, we put a stamp on there and you write across the stamp and endorse it. Now, it's useful, but not 100%. Right? With the knowledge of claim, the paperwork, adverb, paperwork, is deemed accepted. Then you sign it in the hyphen if you like, with the two dots and so on, do it properly. And if you want, then you to prove your identification in their thing, you put down PP and then sign it normally, right? But that's entirely up to you. But at the back of it, you turn that around and you make a stroke from one end of the paperwork to the other, right across and you put a postage stamp down the bottom here, $1 or $1, whatever it is. I think they're $1. I'm not sure the price of stamps. It's brilliant, isn't it? Then you endorse it right across the stamp like that, and then that becomes a legal document. And I don't like the term legal, but it is a lawful and legal document, and it becomes under the bill of landing. So they have to accept this paperwork. They've got no right with that stamp on it. That is their duty. They're breaking a lot of laws by not accepting it. Anyway, just have a look at that. Freeze frame the video. Just freeze frame it there and copy it. Have a look at it. Move it up and down. Have a good look at it again. I'll try and put a little snapshot of this at the back of the video so you can copy it, right? Okay, well, this is what, when they send you out those documents in boxes, you correct the documents in boxes, send it back to them, and tell them it's gobbledygook or whatever, the best of your knowledge, and then send them back this. You're going to accept their invitation, but on these grounds. I'm not saying it works. It has worked for some people, but again, these people will change the rules, but it slows them down, and that's for sure.
Just doing it because I like to help people.
What?